Hello, my friends, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a little bit since I've done an update on what I've been reading, and so I want to take the time to do that, to do a recap of what I've read in June and so far in July, and give you a feel for where I'm at. I think all of these books, I've already done kind of a review on Golden Apples of the Sun by Bradbury. But I believe the rest of them I probably won't do a specific review for. That may have one exception, and I'll talk about that. But I fully intend the next book that I'm finishing to be making a video review for because I am just delighted with the book so far. It's the mood read book I didn't know I needed, and it's so delightful. So let's dive right into it. I've read a total of 11 books. A couple of them have been audiobooks, so that helps pad that number. One of them is a graphic novel, so that helps pad that number as well. But otherwise, I've not had the best reading month. June was kind of hit and miss. I think I finished more audiobooks than regular books, or close to it. So let's get into first of all, the June on the Range book that I read. First ever Western. It won't be my last, even though this one was average at best. And that is Hunted Riders by Max Brand, an author that I heard mentioned many, many times across the different June on the Range videos. And I thought this was fine. None of it blew me away. And I know there's better Western writers and Westerns out there. So I'm not going to write off the genre just because one book was just okay. I don't have much else to say about this. This one was a little disappointing, but I didn't go in with any real expectations. I finished The Last Days of Socrates by Plato. This one I did enjoy. I actually did a combination of both physical reading and some audio of it to try to push through it, because there are times where it just was tough to get through, and I just was trying to juggle a lot of other things at the same time. And it was good. It was enjoyable. Definitely a better experience than Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which I DNF'd prior to June starting. In this one, I actually didn't mind. And I wouldn't mind reading more Plato, and I do have the Republic on my shelf, so eventually I will get around to that. And then we'll see where I go from there, if I decide to pick up any of the other Plato dialogues, or just say that that's good enough. I talked about this in my mid-year freakout, Deeds of the Saxons by Wunderkind of Corvey, and this was phenomenal. This was exactly what I wanted and needed out of a medieval period history book written during the medieval period, and felt very much like it was written in the vein of somebody like Herodotus, which is very engaging and readable, and less like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which is still readable at points, but not completely gripping in narrative as it goes along. So this was fantastic if you have any interest at all in the medieval period or the Saxon people or in history in general. This is only, let's see here, I've got 152 pages, so you'll breeze right through it, and it was really, really worthwhile, and a book that I don't think many people know about or know of. So definitely check it out. Next we have the Mabinogion. I can never pronounce this. There you go. This is fantastic. It was potentially my best non-reread of the year until this month. Although I did forget, so in my mid-year freakout tag, not only did I forget this when considering what to include, I also forgot that I read for the first time the concluding volume of the Live Ship Traders trilogy back in January. So that probably would have been my favorite book of the year so far. And even that, I think, has been supplanted now by a book that'll be coming up next that I'm going to talk about. But this is great. This has got a lot of different stories in there. It's got a lot of Arthurian influence. Really, really well done. Probably the best book I've read so far this year. Not counting anything that's a reread. Because, we have some Tolkien in there. So this doesn't quite top that. But I just finished today The Fall of Hyperion by Dan Simmons. And oh my goodness. So my biggest complaint with Hyperion was the enormously long chapters. And that's not the problem here. The chapters are anywhere from like 8 to 20 pages long in here. And so that makes it much easier to pick up, read a little bit, and set back down type of book. And it picks up from where the actual story elements in Hyperion leave off. And it does it beautifully. It resolves things really, really well. It sets up the next books, which I, going into it, had no idea how things were going to play out and what was going to happen and what it was going to be setting up. And I think it's done magnificently. I probably won't pick up the third book in the Hyperion Cantos this month, just because I want to try to get to a couple of other books that I've been intending to read. But I'll be returning to this series very, very soon. Very likely in August or September. And trying to finish all 4 of the cantos before the end of this year. And that may be a book that I end up doing a review on. Hyperion and Fall of Hyperion is kind of a combo. If you're interested in that, let me know. And I can certainly cater to the masses. Next we have Golden Apples of the Sun by Ray Bradbury. This got me out of my June slump and helped me get back into reading in July. And there are a few things like Ray Bradbury that can do that. Really, really enjoy Ray Bradbury. The last physical one that I have here is my graphic novel. This is Beowulf, based on the screenplay by Neil Gaiman and Roger Avary. And it's enjoyable. It's been forever since I've seen the movie. And I do want to rewatch it with a deeper appreciation of Beowulf that I've fostered since I last saw it. And be curious to watch it and see what my thoughts are now. And this was fine. It's got some good artwork in there and does a nice job of telling parts of the story. And then a couple of the audiobooks that I finished. I finished We Are the Ants by Shaun David Hutchinson. This was on Michael's from Fit to Be Read, his top 150 science fiction books. And this was the first one on that list that just fell flat for me. I didn't identify with the main character at all. He was very moody, broody, pessimistic about life, the universe, future, mankind as a whole. And even through the story arc that's being told there, I don't think it was enough to redeem the character for me. And a lot of it was, even though it's sci-fi, because there's, the presence of an alien race that abducts him repeatedly. It felt more like high school slice of life being told. And, that just wasn't what I was looking for. And I was glad I listened to it on audio because I probably wouldn't have finished it otherwise. As I told Scott Danielson, because I was Voxering him while I was going through it. And my point was I'm going to finish it because it's not long. I'm listening at 1.5 speed, so I can go through it relatively quickly. And I had about 10 books on hold, and none of them were about to come through. So I had no reason not to, other than to try and pick something up. I had a couple that were going to be coming through in about 2 weeks, and so I was inclined to wait for one of those, which I'll talk about that one next. And that's Prelude to Foundation by Isaac Asimov. And it was very enjoyable. Not nearly as enjoyable as the original Foundation trilogy. It sets up the backstory for Selden, who comes up with the psychohistory. So it gives his background and how he comes to announce psychohistory and the ripple effect that has, and that it was a theory, but he has no idea how to work it all out yet, and it's something that would take millions of years, thousands of lifetimes to come up with an answer. So on the run from people wanting to use and abuse him for his psychohistory. Just some interesting nuances in there. Asimov knows how to write a really interesting and engaging story, and it was a good thing to be listening to this month. I'm actually listening to Foundation and Empire now too, because that whole came through. So even though I've got a copy of it on my shelf, getting it through audio is going to help me get back to it faster, because I have read many, many years ago the original Foundation trilogy, and that's all I've read of that. So I was glad to get to the first of the prequels and get back into the main trilogy as well, and slowly explore everything that Asimov wrote in that Foundation cycle. I still need to go back and visit some of the robot series, because I've got some of those on my shelf. All right, so the next one that I want to talk about, The City in the City by China Meiville. Another audiobook that I listened to. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it. And what I got was not what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting almost a detective mystery kind of unfolding. But I enjoyed it tremendously. I was very much hooked. It took a re-listening to the first, I think, 2 hours, because just it laying things out, it's easy to miss little things here and there. And so it didn't really hook me initially. And I was like, you know what? I should give it another go. I should start back over and try to pay closer attention, slowed it down to 1.25 speed, and caught things a little bit better. And ended up getting absolutely reeled into the story and enjoying myself tremendously in it. Definitely in the top portion of the books that I've read this year, and very much recommend it. And then the last one that I've finished since June is the audiobook of Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said by Philip K. Dick. And so the We Are the Ants, The City in the City, and this were all from Michael from Fit to Be Read's top 150 science fiction list. And I think this one was the one of those three that I enjoyed the most. Even though I just said that The City in the City was fantastic, I think this one just barely edges past it. And the real hook of it is you have a person who's famous, and then they wake up and nobody knows who they are. Nobody can remember them. And how all of that can unfold. And it was just done really, really well. And just like with the Asimov, this just shows that Philip K. Dick is just a master of the craft of writing and can tell a fantastic story. I've read a couple of Philip K. Dick novels prior to this, and this one was fantastic. I'm very, very glad that I got around to it. And there's more Philip K. Dick on there that I need to get to, and a lot more Philip K. Dick that he's written that is probably worth reading, that I intend to get around to at some point in time. So it certainly won't be my last Philip K. Dick, even when I get through Michael's list and the ones that he's put on there. So let's talk about what I'm reading. So I mentioned I'm listening to Foundation and Empire by Isaac Asimov, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm not very far into it because I just got that Friday. So I listened to a little bit of it on my Friday commute. And then it's been the weekend, so I don't listen to audiobooks during the weekend when I'm traveling with, my wife, kids in the car. Usually if it's just me, I'll throw on my audiobook. I should be starting Monstrous Volume 2 any time now. I have it up there on my shelf and just haven't picked it up because I was trying to blitz through Hyperion, The Fall of Hyperion. I'm currently still chipping away through Angry Candy by Harlan Ellison. On Saturday, I think it was. I think Friday night into Saturday. There was a really, really long story in there. I think 70 or 80 pages long. And really, really done. Really interesting. That also had some visual elements to it. Some text that was on the page that would be sideways or done in a spiral, had some images in there, and so that it was an interesting blending, and it told a very interesting story. And when I do finish Angry Candy, I'll probably be reviewing that one, so I'll talk about it more at length there. But this has just been an enjoyable collection. I think Paladin of the Lost Hour is probably still my favorite out of the collection so far, which is the one that opened up the volume. But I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm slowly working my way through the Riesling anthology that I have, I think from 2016. So that's science fiction, fantasy, and horror poetry, the best of that year. And so really enjoying getting around to that. I'm working my way through the Tolkien Reader with Scott Danielson as buddy read. I did Tree and Leaf last week. So that is his essay on fairy stories and his short story Leaf by Niggle, both of which were rereads for me, and both of which are just absolutely fantastic. And so this week I'll be reading Farmer Giles of Ham, and I'm really looking forward to that one. And then next week we'll be concluding with the Tom Bombadil, so poetry by Tolkien. And it's just been absolute blast to read Tolkien again, to read Tolkien in July again with Scott Danielson, because last year we did the Silmarillion together with Steve Donahue. And that's how I got to know Scott Danielson, and I've developed a good friendship with him since then. And that's been the fantastic part about BookTube. It's just, getting to meet people on camera and to have that roll into other ways of staying in touch. And so the last one I'm going to talk about here is influenced by the person that sponsored my last video on it unintentionally. Because I can't go through a video without mentioning Michael K. Vaughan and how he impacts my reading and the way I'm viewing things. And I was sorting through some of my books. I'm almost done adding all of my books into library thing. Because I've decided I'm not a big fan of Goodreads. So I wanted to catalog them and start fresh. And there's no bells, there's no whistles. It's just, a straight way of tracking my collection. And I'm going to enjoy having that in library thing. And so I was scanning in a shelf and came across the latest batch that Michael K. Vaughan had sent me. And there were a couple of books in there. I was like, I need to read this soon. And I just got sidetracked because that's the way it goes. And so I pulled two of them out. So I'm going to be starting soon on the Day of the Triffids, because I know that is one of Michael's favorite books. But the one that I pulled was the one that I was expecting to absolutely love. And I had to force myself to put it down to make this video. it was hard to do. I almost didn't want to talk to you because I just want to sit down and read this book and try to finish it. There was no way I was going to finish it today. And I just started it today after finishing Fall of Hyperion. And that is Myrick by Robert E. Howard. You can see I'm already about halfway in there. I'll hit that halfway point tonight after shutting off this video. I've got one more chapter to hit that halfway point, and it's only 8 pages or so, and then I'll be halfway through. And I hope that I'll finish it tomorrow, and I'll be reviewing this very, very soon. Nevertheless, potentially in the next week. And I'm absolutely enjoying it. This is his science fiction book, and it's very much still sword and sorcery, but set on a new planet. So it's enjoyable. Robert E. Howard is just fantastic. Continuing to solidify that he is one of my favorite authors. Because so far, I've only read the Coming of Conan the Cimmerian for Conan stories. And those are just his 13 short earliest Conan stories. So I haven't even got to the later ones, the longer ones yet. But I've met, this is the third different character on page that I've met of his that he's written, and I've enjoyed every single one of them. I think it was Elborak was my least favorite of them so far. And that had as much to do with the cover not living up to what I was expecting as anything else, because the writing, of course, was still fantastic. But I am just loving to death this book, and I'm very, very happy to have stumbled back across it so that I could prioritize it, because I still want to get around to Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser and Halloween Tree this month. And all of those are short. In theory, at the pace I'm going right now, I should be able to finish this Triffids, Halloween Tree, and Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser this month without too much trouble. As long as I don't get back into a reading slump. And so June 1st marked the point in time when I was going on a book buying restriction and then going to be tracking my page count. Kind of like how Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads is doing it, but I don't have a gauge on where I should hit. I'm not giving myself a target number, but I am curious how many pages I'll end up reading in a year. And so far, with the books I've finished, nothing else, not counting ones I've made some progress on but haven't gotten to the end of, in a month and a half, I've read 3,379 pages, which is not bad considering I had a really big slump in there for the mid part of June. That I'd still say that's a pretty good success. So there you have it. I just wanted to get on here, just chat with you, catch up with what I've been reading. I might do this monthly. I might do it every 2 weeks. Probably not weekly, but to give an overall update. And some of them, Myrick, for sure, we'll be getting reviews when I get done with them. So that's something to look forward to. I hope you're having a great day, and catch you later, BookTube.